If you played a Capcom game before, what they love more than anything is referencing their other titles. They even made a game all about crossovers. Beneath the cesspool, one of them continued to stay in many people's hearts, a ninja in purple attired complemented with his red scarf. His name is Strider Hiryu. A ninja more known in crossovers than his actual games. Don't lie, these numbers show. We are going to take a look back on his games to see if his legacy is worth looking back on, or is it better that we don't explore at all and just look at him at a face level. There's only one way to find out. This is Strider, Capcom's greatest ninja. For any of those that haven't played any of his games, let me give you a quick rundown. Strider is a series of 2D hack-and-slash platformer games. You play as Hiryu, a ninja that is part of a discrete organization trained to the point that these agents are considered superhuman. This organization is known as the Striders. With only 4 games to its name, I'm mainly going to talk about the games that are relevant to Strider Hiryu and how he's portrayed now. So with that being said, I'm not going to talk about the NES version. Why, you may ask? Well, lore-wise, it's very significant to the series, since it's a very accurate portrayal of what he is in the manga. Oh yeah, right, he has a manga. I gotta mention something before I move on. The franchise was originally going to be a 3-part project, basing off each other, with the manga only reaching 6 chapters, then unknowingly canceled. It slowly faded to obscurity. In the case of the NES, however, it's a completely different story. It was completely overshadowed, competing with the biggest names on the NES, which I'd have mentioned genre defining. The real nail to the coffin was the arcade version of the game being way more popular, to the point that Capcom kinda neglects both the game and the manga's existence entirely, despite how important it is to the legacy itself. So, into the obscurity hole it goes! Don't worry, I'll cover that up with something more important and more in line into the rest of the Strider legacy. But first, we gotta get started. So, we're gonna talk about the first game, Strider, released in the 1989 for the arcades. The game itself doesn't really tell you what's going on, more like what you're going to do. And also the cutscenes are a little, I'll just say right to the point. So I'm going to be using a couple wikis and magazines as a frame of reference. With that being said, the story goes a little bit like this. In the distant future of 2048, a being with an unknown origin came to Earth, possessing the powers many considered godlike. With those powers, he has easily taken over the world. That being is known as the Grand Master. He didn't have an actual name at the time as far as I know, but his official name is Mayo. With nothing being able to contest the Grand Master's might, he controlled the entire world with an iron fist. Obviously, people wanted to rebel against the giant dictator, creating what they call the Rebel Force. They enlist the help of the agents of secret stuff, and they send out the legend himself, Strider Hiryu. Hiryu must traverse country to country, trying to find and kill the Grand Master. Spoiler alert, he's on a giant satellite, known as the Third Moon. Hiryu is willing to take down everything in his way, be it the military might of multiple countries or hired assassins, sometimes both at the same time. And you might be thinking, why must Hiryu do this alone? This is basically a suicide mission, right? And isn't there like an organization full of people like him who could help easily? The simplest reason why? He's just that good. He is considered the best of the Striders, a one-man army. The gameplay really shows you how much he can really handle. So, it gets to my next topic, the gameplay of Strider 1. Being a game made for arcade cabinets, its sheer design is to make you cough up your coins. The game takes you on a wild ride, taking you to 5 stages, taking you all around the world, and also the Third Moon. So now it gets to the actual game, where all you do is mash one button all day, swinging your trusty blade Cypher, killing whatever's in front of you. I also like to point out that whenever you swing this blade, you leave a energy wave trailing behind, with also a distinct sound effect going. This is actually Hiryu's signature characteristics when portraying him. Besides his weaponry, Hiryu himself is capable of sliding, hitting enemies and lowering his hitbox, able to climb anything from walls to ceilings, because, you know, he's an actual ninja, and also a very quirky cartwheel jump too. He can also destroy these drones that more so help Hiryu than hurt him, making him utilize the cybernetic little helpers known as the options. Yes, that's what they're called. No, they don't get actual names, besides being called A, B, and C. They're mainly pickups, and it assists him in certain ways. You're gonna need it, because this game is hard, and it will do as much as it can to kill you. From ridiculous platforming segments, a lot of annoying enemy placements, lack of downtime, clunky controls, and my favorite part, the boss rush. Despite how janky this game is, I actually had a lot of fun with it. I even beat the game in under an hour, without a timer forcing me to progress this time, too. Visually, it's very vibrant. It's really easy to keep track of what's on the screen because how colorful everything is, and the stages are very distinct from one another. It's a very good game overall. Some critics praise this game for its graphics, clunky yet fun movement, and the quick action gameplay that you don't often see during that time period. It was good enough to get ports on every single home console at the time, which is actually a very huge feat back in the day. Okay, so you don't want to take my opinion or the critics. How about this? This game also inspired Capcom staffs themselves, much like Keiji Inafune, the godfather of anything Mega Man. He modeled the reoccurring bounty hunter, Solo, to create Zero, the Maverick Hunter, and soon to be the most popular character to ever come out of that franchise. And for Street Fighter's case, Tong Pu, one of the 4 Win Sisters trying to kill you, as a base for Chun-Li, you know, the one in Fortnite. Though many people considered Strider 1 a very good game, but Capcom didn't. Due to beat-em-ups, fighting games, and the soon-to-be mascot of Capcom, sales-wise, Strider didn't do that well compared to those giants. So let's talk about its next game, Strider 2. Released in 1990, it was made to capture the popularity the first game brought. And man, this game sucks. I don't know how this game got worse. The fact that they removed a lot of animations that even made the first game a little bit more special. They just decided to make every color gray. The quick hack and slash gameplay is gone now and instead centered around a trial and error waiting game, and it's very slow. Very, very slow. Practically everything that was praised in the first game was stripped away entirely, and my god, how did Capcom fumble the bag on this? I think they just didn't care at this point. This game is just a useless cash grab to see if this... Wait, this game isn't made by Capcom? Then what is this game? Okay, so you heard me right. Some random British company convinced Capcom USA to have the license to make the official sequel as a side project. What was their main project? Who cares? They ruined Strider and everyone hated it, to the point it's not even considered a sequel or spin-off to the entire fanbase. Rightfully so. This game is trash, and no one should play it. They even stripped off the Strider 2 to avoid the confusion of the fanbase to wait for the real Strider 2. Now it's just called Strider Returns. So with that being said, where is the actual sequel to Strider? Nowhere. They didn't do anything with how popular the series was, because, you know, considered a failure. So what they did with that time instead is make a bunch of Street Fighters and 20-something Mega Mans. So Strider slowly faded to obscurity. Obviously, this video is still going. I want to talk about a very important thing I have to address. Don't worry, this will be quick. Hiryu's design. He's fine right now, but he doesn't have the iconic red scarf that people know him for. Where did it even come from? I wondered that too, because I originally thought it came from the second game, you know, Strider Returns, but no. It came from, hilariously, a crossover game. Let me show you the game I'm talking about. Let's go forward 9 years later, 1998. Yes, originally the game that made Capcom's iconic ninja was the clash of comics and gaming culture. The fighting game, Marvel vs. Capcom, Clash of the Superheroes. This game had a colorful 15-character roster from many different backgrounds, and hey, Strider got to be a part of it, and got so much cooler. So from here on out, whenever bringing him to any game, they use this design as a base. With this game's existence, this actually renewed Strider's popularity again among the fanbase. I can't emphasize enough how important this series of video games is very relevant to Strider's legacy. People were demanding for a proper sequel for our renewed ninja. Well, again. But this time, Capcom finally decided to budge. Strider 2. For real this time. Before I go through anything else, let's talk about the story again, because this story is a little bit weird. Let me read it out to you so you know what I mean. A being with an unknown origin, possessing the powers many considered godlike, has taken over the world, and that being is known as the Grandmaster. You heard of something like this before? That's because this game is reusing the same plot structure of the original. Settings like the third moon again, even foes like Tonpu's Solo, and even the weird human centipede dragon thing, to name a few. So, what's going on? Is this a reboot? It would make sense because this is 10 years after the original. No. And here's why. There is dialogue at the end of the game that completely destroys the theory as a whole, and prove it's an actual sequel. But I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Let's talk about the reason why has the Grandmaster returned. In the organization of the Striders, there's a member named Strider Hien, a comrade of Hiryu's on multiple missions. He was also secretly someone loyal to the Grandmaster, so he abandoned the Striders altogether and somehow revived the dead deity. With history soon to repeat itself, the Grandmaster wanted to ensure one thing during his quickly done rule: exterminate the Striders. With Hien's help, he was successful with that plan. killing all of the members of the Strider organization before they can even take action. Well, all but one. What makes this any different from the first game, you might be wondering? With the destruction of the Striders, Hiryu isn't able to use his robotic supports, and numbers-wise, there's actually no rebellion this time to keep off him. With the world decaying under his rule, declining population rate, he is truly all alone on this journey of one against all odds. So with the main plot out of the way, let's talk about the games visually, because it's a little bit divisive. It is a game melding 2D sprite work and a 3D polygonal background. The overlay between them can be distracting, to say the least. We do get these more dynamic boss fights and scenery using the 3D models, so how you view it is kind of a give or take. There's actually one thing for certain you can always say about the game. It is a major improvement all across the board. Having a mission selector, the game even having a pause button, more movement options, smoother controls, good 2D sprite work, a boost button, and my favorite part, the illustrations for every chapter. And oh man, it really gives what you're doing so much scale. These are always awesome to look at when you get one when the stage starts and ends. Difficulty-wise, this is by far the easiest the game has ever been. Not because they're not trying to make it hard, mind you. You do die on multiple occasions in this game. It's more like the fact that Hiryu is so OP in this game. It's worth dying so you can regain your boost to melt everything in your way. And as well as the PlayStation 1 exclusively, you have infinite lives. And how the respawn works in this game, it's similar to a beat 'em up. Enemies will still be damaged by the time you spawn back in, and you have invincibility frames to get a couple hits in, so realistically, there is no drawback for dying. Alright, back to what really matters. You defeat everyone in your path to this point, hijack a ship to fly into the third moon, running through solo for the third time, and confront the traitor Strider Heian in his insanely easy boss fight. Then we head to fight the Grandmaster to settle this once and for all. We quickly defeat him. As a last resort though, he summons a giant demonic creature. That is the true final boss. Fun fact, he's the only boss I actually died to more than twice. And with the demonic creature falling down to earth, we confront the Grandmaster once again. On the verge of death, he recognized the name Hiryu, and then he asked him if he was the same Strider that struck him down 2,000 years ago, and if he returned just to finish the job. Without any response, Hiryu strikes him down, hopefully for good this time. Wait a minute, did he just say 2,000 years ago? What is going on? Who is Hiryu? As a matter of fact, what is he? These questions will never be answered because there's no follow-up to this game. Despite the game being well received, again, and personally very fun, Capcom deemed this as another failure, and I think I pinpointed the reasons why. Strider 2 is a very short game. For me, I completed it in around 40 minutes, just to the fact that the game's easier. Because originally, when I played the first game, I kept dying at this one part for like 20 minutes. That's what extended the game time for like an hour. And keep in mind, these games are originally arcade machines. It's best to assume it didn't suck that many people's quarters as much as they hoped for, compared to like a beat 'em up or a fighting game. They tried to port the game to the PlayStation 1 a year later, but it's best to assume that so many people beat the game at this point, it's not even worth buying. It did give you incentives. It did. It made it so that you can play the giant traitor himself, Heian, which is hilariously made the game even easier to beat, and also the infinite lives I mentioned earlier. Even with incentives like that, it still only sold 80,000 copies, practically chump change to their console mascot, so it slowly died. It's a shame how the series went out, honestly. Playing these games myself, I really had a fun time. Well, most of it. But there's actually one thing I wanted to mention. I lied to you about one thing. There isn't 4 games to the series, there's 5. So yes, this isn't the end, and fans like it enough to not disown this one entirely. That is Strider 2014. The 2014 is not included, it's just because, you know, same name. I'm gonna make a video separate due to the fact that this game is more like a reboot to the series, and also the fact that it's generations apart. In return, I'm gonna make a detailed overview of the game. If you look forward to that, subscribe! If you don't, then thank you for at least wasting your time to watch this all the way through. I want to leave a note before I go. Future me, can you edit a stock image of 2 guys laughing at a guy, and then keep flipping that image over and over again until the video ends? Thank you.